Got the slides? Nice. Yeah, I like this. Okay, I think we're going to get started. This is the IPSECME session at IETF 100. Welcome. So this session, we're actually we're sharing the room with Lamps. So this session will run from now until 11, and then Lamps will run from 11 to, I believe, noon. So we'll have to end promptly. We'd ask you not to stay in the room and have conversations. If you want to talk, please do so out in the hall, or stay and enjoy Lamps. Next slide, please. So this is the note well. You've agreed to this as part of your registration. This is just a reminder that that anything that you say at the mic or any participation in the IETF is a contribution to the IETF. Next slide, please. Logistics. I've got the blue sheets around, so they should be on their way. We have Tommy's agreed to be a note taker. Can I get a second volunteer? We're taking notes in Etherpad, so it would just be useful to have one other person watching and helping out there. Any volunteers? I think we can make do with the one. I'll help out where I can. And then Rich has offered to be our Jabber scribe, so thank you, Rich. So we have a pretty full agenda today. We're gonna do some quick draft status review. We have about 30 minutes for authors to update us on some of the current drafts that are in progress. And we're going to spend the bulk of our time today talking about our READ charter. Next slide, please. Any agenda bashing before we do that? Okay. Next slide. So we've had actually a fairly productive period between now and the last IETF. We've actually had 3 drafts published as RFCs, our 2 crypto algorithm related drafts, and TCP and CAPS. So thank you to the authors and reviewers for all of your hard work on those drafts. It's good to have those done. The ED-DSA draft is, I believe, pretty much ready to progress. We've recently had an update published. So I think at this time we're just waiting for the AD go-ahead in order to progress that draft forward. And we've just concluded a working group last call on split DNS and implicit IV. We've gotten some feedback on those drafts. I believe the authors are working on resolving those comments, and we may have some discussion on some outstanding issues today. And then the QR work is I think doing fairly well. We're getting pretty close on that. I think there were some recent changes in the latest update. So it would be great to to focus the group around some more review on that draft, so we can get that wrapped up too. Tiro, anything else to add? Okay. Next slide, please. So next we wanted to have some discussion on our current outstanding work items. I don't see Paul. Oh, hi, Paul. Do you have any status on split DNS? You're welcome to come up and use this mic too.
This is okay too. So this is Paul Wouter speaking. So I just submitted 03 yesterday. That was all the comments in regards to Valerie's comments. And as far as I know, there's nothing else pending. So it would be nice to get a few more reviews, but I think we've gone over this, especially last IETF. We had a big discussion about how to move forward with the format. Yeah. So I think it's in pretty good shape and we can move on.
Okay. Does anyone in the room have any concerns with this draft? So I think we'll do a quick, confirmation of that on the list, and if there are no concerns, we'll send it forward. Daniel, implicit IV.
So we received a few comments. We addressed those, and the current status is that using the implicit IV is not compatible with all the IKE extensions. So the current text is saying that we should not use it with IKE v2. So another way to do would be to say don't use it with these extensions.
I assume you mean use it to encrypt IKE version 2 traffic.
Yeah. So if someone would like something that is more flexible, please raise this issue on the mailing list.
Sorry, Paul. Yes, yeah, please.
Okay, so Paul Wouters. So I would. It would be nice because this draft is all about cutting out a few bytes left and right for the IoT people. It would be nice if we can actually make it work with IKE v2, and just saying like, oh, we found a difficulty in IKE v2, let's just not use it for IKE v2, seems a shame. Like it seems like it's defeating half of the purpose. And even though the draft says like, oh, well, it's only IKE, there's only a few packets, there's many more ESP packets. I think the use cases here are things like sensors and other things that actually only set up a tunnel to send one packet of data and then shut down everything again. So I actually don't think that the use case is so small compared to ESP. So I think I would like to see it extended to also somehow cover IKE in some super clever way.
Talking as a, not chair. So I was actually thinking about, we have a couple of other items coming with the diet ESP, and we also have a compressed IKE version 2 stuff. And I was thinking about it might be a better option to do the compressed IKE version 2 than to do just saving the implicit IV in IKE version 2 stuff. Because IKE version 2 do have, the message IDs and so on, and it's a little bit it actually gets quite complicated. So I was actually hoping we could actually get this one out. And they're actually separate, we can have, there is no need to put them to be in the same document. Even if we start working on this after we can put this implicit IV for ESP first out, and then we start working on the IKE parts. And that's something that we can discuss on the resoldering. And that was as a chair.
While responsible for this plus, I wanted that current document current draft doesn't document how to use it with IQ2 at all, because the way IV is derived only for sequence number and extended sequence number. It is not mentioned how for IQ2 transform the implicit IV should be derived from what. We assume it's Met's ID, but it is not documented. So it is not appropriate to use in current form, at least in current form. It is not appropriate to use with IQ2.
Okay. So Daniel, do you have a plan on when you'll have comments addressed?
I'm probably going to discuss with some people this week and publish the version with the consensus, I believe, this week.
Okay.
And
That
then
works.
can go for further discussions.
Sounds good. Anyone here on the QR draft?
Yeah, we have this presentation about it.
Oh, yes, yes. Thank you. So turn. You can always use this one.
Okay. Valery Smyslov, LS Plus. Unlike previous draft, we even have slides. So it's a very short presentation. Draft quantum resistant IQ2. Scott Fleur, David Group, Panos Kampanakis from Cisco Systems, and myself from LS Plus. Next, please. And just a moment. Previous draft name was Draft Fleur qua IQ2, and now it is draft IETF IPSECME qua IQ2. Next, please. So, in case you forgot what it is draft about, some quick background. So currently, IKE protected traffic can be stored, and later, when fully functioning quantum computers is available, can be decrypted. And this draft proposes a short-term solution for this problem, by introducing post-quantum pressured key that is steered into the calculation of keys, and when used, it protects communication from later decrypting using quantum computers. So, next, please. Just a quick update. What has changed from previous version? Well, the previous version of the draft had a problem that if responder supports post-quantum pressured keys, but isn't configured with the PPK ID the initiator is proposing. So in this case, the responder has no ability to continue exchange and only has to abort exchange, even if using PPK is not mandatory for both. So because our payload is already calculated using PPK. So we propose a solution to this problem, that in case the initiator using PPK for the initiator is not mandatory, the initiator may provide an optional payload, notification payload that contains authentication data computed without using PPK, so that the responder is able to continue to complete IKSA if it is optional for the responder too. So, Paul, the question?
Yeah, sorry, I'm not fully awake yet. The no PPK auth, is that in the IKE init message?
Pardon?
Is the no PPK auth notification in the IKE init or the IKE auth message?
It's contain well, it contains the same information as would contain out payload, but computed without using PPK.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry. Thanks.
So you can see it as the initiator authenticate it twice, once using PPK simultaneously, and once without using PPK. And the responder can select which authentication it can continue with. So it is fully optional, and it just allows IKSA to complete in cases when some misconfiguration or in transition period, when in complex configuration it is difficult to simultaneously update all the hosts so that all of them are using proper PPK, not only PPK, but proper configured PPK. So next, please. So what are another changes? Other changes in the draft. So we expand security considerations. Previous. Oh, we expand security consideration sections with three considerations. One consideration is that the current draft mandates that if PPK using PPK is mandatory, and for initiator and responder doesn't support it, the initiator aborts IKSA negotiation. So it leaves an half-open essay on the responder that may be considered by the responder as denial of service attack. So for that reason, we recommend that initiator caches negative result and at least doesn't try to too often to continue to re-establish this IKSA, because otherwise the responder may think that it is under attack and take some measures like blocking IP address. And so then it is possible with another attack is a downgrade attack that is possible if attacker is equipped with fully functional quantum computer, and is possible to break digital signature in real time. It can just, in this case, it can eliminate PPK support notification and then forge digital signature. So the reason, the solution, our recommendation is to make PPK using mandatory. In this case, the attack will be detected, and it's just, like I say, won't be established, or use pre-shared key authentication. In this case, the attack will be detected too. Well, and the third attack is if attacker is able to eavesdrop and injects packet into the network, it can mimic the responder response. For example, well, if using PPK is mandatory for initiator, and the attacker is able to inject packet without PPK support, the initiator will abort the exchange before the genuine response from the responder, even if responder supports PPK. So we recommend that initiator should wait for more responses. If it receives negative responses, it should wait for more responses in case attacker is able to inject forged packet before the genuine responder. So next, please. Doesn't work. So we expanded security consideration, operation consideration section, describing how PPK are distributed, describing using grow PPK's case and PPK only authentication. So PPK only authentication is a situation, is a case when PPK is used with null authentication method. So it eliminates a second set of credentials for initiator and responder. So the draft in its current form requires that both initiator and responder have two sets of security credential, PPKs and conventional credentials like certificates. So we can get rid of certificates because with quantum computers they are useless, and use PPK only authentication by using null authentication method with PPK. So a group PPK is only described, but it is not recommended. Just all tweaks are, all disadvantages are explained. So we also tweak to PPKD format, shifting all values by one, making value 0 as reserved, as it's common practice for IQ2 registries. Next, please. Well, so we think that document is quite mature, and I think that it is almost ready for workgroup last call. We encourage more reviews to catch possible needs. And we know that besides Cisco implementation, there is a LibreSwan implementation. Paul can tell about it more. And one remaining question. So the status of the document, because we think that the document must be standard track. Currently in IPSECME working group data tracking, it is marked as informational. So we think that it must be discussed, and probably document should be standard track. So, Paul?
Okay, Paul Wouters. So yes, I agree it should be standard track. The LibreSwan implementation implements the Fluor draft, so not the latest revision yet, but maybe we can brush it up this week and make it work. So if anyone wants to do some interrupt testing, we have a server online to do some interrupt testing with. I'll send the details of the configuration to the list so people can try and interoperate. I had one question or one concern, and even though I'm not a cryptographer and Scott is, I would like some more feedback from cryptographers about doing two encryptions with the same information that only differs by a PPK, and how much that could possibly open us up to an attack. So if an attacker can see both the encryption with the PPK and the encryption of the auth payload without the PPK, does that open any kind of attack? And I'm a little nervous by that, because usually we try to avoid doing those things, but this might be some kind of oracle, and I'm not sure if that would be an oracle in the classical sense or an oracle in the quantum computer kind of sense. And maybe that's something we should take up to CFRG or something to get a better idea if this is safe.
Well, I can only relate to Scott's opinion, because he's cryptographer, I'm not.
Mark McFadden. I have a question in the operational consideration. First of all, let me say that I'm in support of this as being a standard track document. But in the operational considerations section, you talk about PPK distribution, and you talk about a possible way to actually do the distribution, right? And what I was thinking about, and this actually goes to the discussion of charter later, is that it seems like that operational consideration, the idea that you do have a mechanism for static distribution of PPK, is something that ought to be also in a separate document. And was your intention to say a future document would handle how distribution was done after this was taken care of? Is that your intention?
Well, I don't know. Really, the operation consideration was written just to help operators or think of how we can switch to using PPKs. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure it should be in a different document, because the solution, first of all, it's a short-term solution. So short-term document, we are waiting for a fully functional post-quantum key exchange method from cryptographers. So it's short-term solution for at least we look at it.
Understood. I guess I'd say to the chairs that when we come to the point of actually talking about chartering again, I may bring this up again because I think that I think the operational consideration sections is excellent, but I think that particular example, the distribution issue, ought to be something that might be a focus of another document.
Thank you.
I think it's important to note that that is something that we've talked about before, and we intentionally left that discussion out of this draft to get it done sooner than later. Anything else?
No.
Do you mind for a second?
Okay, I believe Paul bring up the question about whether or not sending both the IPAuth, the ICAuth with the PPK without PPK would be a possible oracle. The answer is no. If you have someone with a quantum computer who's able to break everything, well, he can basically pick up anything that's in the non-PPK auth already. So he can compute it entirely. And therefore, that kind of help in constructing the one with the PPK. Because if it was, well, you could use that exact same attack to break the
Scott, I think we're going to need you to repeat the last thing that you said that you were breaking up.
Okay, I'll try to. If the attack, we assume an attacker who has a quantum computer, they can recover the Diffie-Hellman. They know everything else which goes in the standard auth. And so he can basically reconstruct that entirely. So he doesn't actually need that action within the actual packet. And therefore, that is of no help for recovering the PPK, which is actually in the other the standard the one with the auth with the PPK. Did that come out clear?
Yes, but I was confused. Now Scott, it's Paul. Yes, it came out clear. I'll just maybe repeat it because this microphone seems to work better. Scott is saying if you have a quantum computer, you can basically attack the Diffie-Hellman, get all the components of the ICAuth classic payload, and the fact that only the PPK is different doesn't help you determining the PPK of if you got both calculations. So we were just silent because we were like, we don't understand this. We are not cryptographers.
Okay, thanks.
So I think it might be useful to do a quick hum on the informational versus standards track issue. Before we do so, are there any concerns with making this document standards track?
So I can think one of the things that why it's informational is that when you put a new draft there, it's always informational until we change it to standard track. Usually, because I think actually the document default is informational, so that's why people always put in informational first. But yes, I think this should be a standard track because this is something that is modifying I can. Actually, next question: do we actually want it to be updating 7 to 96 basic version 2 document? That's the next question. But let's start with the informational and standard track.
Okay, so Paul speaking. So since this is a band-aid that we need to apply as soon as possible, doing it informational seems like counterproductive, and it should really be a standards track.
Okay, so the question for the hum is should we promote this document to be a standards track? Yes or no? So for yes, please hum. And no? Okay, I think that's pretty clear consensus around standards track. And what was the question?
So the next question is that do we actually, because this is actually something that is vague in most of the IETF protocols. We sometimes update the base document, and sometimes we don't, depending on what we do. If in some cases there actually has been confusion, should this update or not? And I think we currently already had one document that updates our base ICA version 2, that's a signatures authentication draft. And I think this belongs in the same category that it should be updating, even if this is optional, but it's something that modifies the basic understanding how the basic stuff that ICA version 2 works. So even if you don't implement it, it might be useful for you to read this and check out that, okay, I might be getting these payloads and know how to ignore them. So that's why I was thinking about it might be something that updates a big base document. But Paul.
So I as well think that it should update the base document, but my reasoning is more that even though this is in a separate document, it does update the core document because we really want people to use this. This is not like some optional feature that gives you another nice shiny flag. This is something we think is the core security of the IKE protocol. So in that sense, I think it really, well, it's not mandatory, but like we strongly recommend that you do this.
Tommy Pauly, Apple. So I'm fine with it updating. I think it's very important to make sure that people are aware that when they're looking at IKE v2 spec, they see this in the link at the top. The one question I have just around process is, because we think this is a Band-Aid for now, and then at some point that will get replaced, so presumably we would have a document that replaces this RFC with like, here's the right way to do quantum resistant long term. Would that also be able to update the update to have it point to that and then remove the update to this?
Yeah, actually, yeah. At least my idea is mostly that if we said something that updates something, it's something that we actually consider to putting into the base document in the next time in some cases. So it's something that actually modifies. For example, the signature authentication draft is something that, or the RFC was something that we could have put in the base IKE version 2 document, but it wasn't ready at that point. So that's why we left it out. Same is the RSA, raw RSA keys and something like that. We have a couple of these cases where we actually, so we are think about, okay, but also if it doesn't say update, that means that, okay, people doesn't need to read this when implementing a base IKE version 2. And I think this actually goes to that category. You don't need to read this to be implementing base IKE version 2 if you don't care about quantum resistance. If it's something that modifies something I say that, okay, if you implement IKE version 2 and this one says you must not do that in the base IKE version, then it's clearly updating. It's something that modifies the base IKE version 2, and you must read this document to be able to do proper, like we had this verification of the Diffie-Hellman parameters. We had the RFC just saying, okay, you have to do this, and that was updating the previous one because that was saying, okay, you must do this. So we were actually modifying something in the base document. So, but yeah.
But if we get to the point where we are actually revving, we do a BIS of the main IKE v2 document, if by that point we have a better quantum resistant solution, would we not include PPK and just include that and say, don't do PPK anymore?
My hope is that the new stuff will be something that is
sufficient.
So no, actually, and I was thinking about the one that we do now is something that we can use as a building block to build the next one. That's
so we expect to still have the PPK.
My understanding
payloads
it's going to be like we have a preset keys, even if we have a signature authentication. So we are not going to remove the preset keys, even if we added the digital signatures.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm fine with it. That's just my one concern is like, how forward looking is it?
Marko Żuchowski, NTSC. Although it's going to be a few years before until NIST comes out with some recommendations for quantum resistant algorithms, we do have there are other proposals in track for introducing asymmetric quantum resistant algorithms into IKE v2. With the draft that was talking about at the previous meeting, that described a protocol that you could use, but into which you could slot any asymmetric algorithm. So I guess what I'd like to say is that I'd like to see at least the same status given to asymmetric algorithms as opposed to the symmetric solution with PPKs. And given that PPKs are seen as an interim solution, then just to question whether it's appropriate that should be an update to the main IKE v2 draft, or whether we should wait for the asymmetric.
Yeah, all right. So we actually have a charter items that are proposed that we actually start working on this, more from the asymmetric or different methods of the real method of quantum resistant versions of the the authentication, not just using PPK. But actually, one of the things I think that people have been saying that they are a little bit early, so that it might be actually possible that those are actually in experimental track in the beginning, depending on how far they are advanced when we actually publish them. They might be standard track if we think that they are ready, but I mean that's something that we don't have to discuss. We're going to discuss that after we get to the charter discussion, which we are going to start very soon after when we finish this. But anyway, so as I said, this is something that we can iterate, and I think we actually probably also want to talk with the AD about this if it's going to be updated or something. But it's something that I want people to think about, and we could actually take a hum now, but perhaps we take a hum now. So two options is take this make this so that it actually updates the base IKE version 2 document, and the other option is that we just leave it as a standard track document but not updating the current. So everybody who thinks that we should make this an update, hum now. And those who think that we should just leave this as a separate document, standard track document, but not update, hum now. So I think the people are more in a favor of saying that, yes, keep this as a separate extension because this is something that can be implemented separately from base document. So okay, but we will of course we'll still talk about this in the list and so on. But okay.
So next, Tira's going to lead us through the rechartering discussion. So we need to recharter because our current charter is marked to expire in December of this year. We've been having a number of discussions on the list about potential new work items. There seems to be interest in continuing some work in this space. So Tira is going to lead us through a conversation about the work items that we've received to date. We're also open to some discussion of additional work items if the group would like to bring any forward now. And I'll leave that to Tira. Is there a problem?
Yeah, I was just trying to see if I can actually get this one. Show me my slides, but I can't. It's just say no input. Okay. All right. It's annoying to be looking backwards.
I have a USB monitor.
If you look at your own laptop, you're the only person who could actually.
No, because my laptop doesn't show the slides. Because I'm not running it in the. All right. Okay, you can. So as I said, you already said this that we are going to be, running out of the time anyway because we have this deadline in our charter saying that we have to recharter by the end of 2017. Last time we were about half a year late. Our charter said we need to recharter before this, and we were half a year. Then after that, we noticed that we should have rechartered last time, so we started doing it the next item. So now we are trying to actually do this on time. Okay, go next slide. Okay, so we have items in the charter that's already done: the DDoS protection, the updating mandatory implement algorithms, adding new algorithms, and then we have this TCP encapsulation. ECDSA marked that here as an almost done because I think it's almost done. Go next one. And then we have a couple of items that are still in the in the work of process, like quantum resistance in version 2, split DNS, and implicit IV. Next one. So this is the boilerplate, the first two paragraphs of our charter, and I actually put it here because I want people to actually read it and see if there's something that we need to modify here, because this is something that has been same for some time already, and I think it's actually useful to every now and then and check if this is valid. So I want people to think about and say if you have any comments about that or if it's fine. And if it's fine, okay, it's got to get thumbs up there. So I think people are happy with this. We don't need to modify this.
Hujun, should we still mention IPv1 here?
That's actually it's one of the things I was actually thinking about. I was.
I mean, we should keep IPv1 like a long time ago.
Yeah, we have made a decision earlier, a couple of I think about 5 years ago back, that we are not going to do any work based on IPv1. But we still left it in the charter because if there is something work to be done on IPv1, I want it to be happening here, not in some other place. So that's why I will actually think about it. Might be a good idea to still keep it here. It says here we're mostly for IPv2. So that's what we are concentrating, but I don't want to limit that.
IPv1 on the charter seems suggest that it's still somehow that's still our in our IETF scope to keep maintaining IPv1, right? I don't think most vendor. I mean, me personally, I don't want to keep maintaining IPv1 anymore.
Yeah.
Lorenzo Coliti, I suggest that we just put it in the charter and say that one of our milestones is to deprecate it. And if it's deprecated, then no new work can be done on it by definition. Or declare it historic. I think historic is better than deprecated, right?
Tommy, yeah, I'm in favor of that. That's a good idea. Then we just close the book on it. I guess the one thing, this is really trivial, but it says like, we're going to do mainly IPv2, which is fair. But I think, there's also definitely some work that has continued to be going on in ESP. So if anything, you would specify essentially we're doing IPv2 and ESP, and that part of the IPsec security architecture is the relevant part going forward. And so we say like, these are our highlights. And then you can just mention, yeah, and we also will have to maintain everything else.
All right. So what I think people are saying that, okay, we should probably, actually in the first paragraph, we say IPv1, it's still actually is part of the IPsec protocols. We could actually put, currently already obsoleted, because it actually is obsoleted already, the IPv1 by IPv2. So we could actually add it in there when we list RFC, we could say that, okay, obsoleted by IPv2, which would actually make it clear that it's obsoleted. And then having here in mostly to IPv2, having mostly to ESP and IPv2, for example. Would that be suitable? We could. Let me see. Actually, it's a PDF. It's actually a little bit annoying, but anyway, yeah. Okay.
So Paul, so one question, I guess, formally speaking, there should really be an IPsec ops and an IPsec extensions group, but it should, like, technically we should split this in two. Now this is a small room. We have doubled in size over the last year, which, yay. I think it's a little silly to split it. I think we don't have enough work to actually have like an ops and an extension group. But I just wanted to look at the ADs, because formally that's how you would like solve some of these issues we have now on the charter.
I think this is a small enough group that we can actually stay in one of and then with an AD comments.
Yeah, Air Squirrel is 80. I'm happy to leave it in one group. Maybe there's an ops person floating around who'd like to split it. They can speak up at some point, but this seems small enough that we probably don't need to break it up.
And anyway, as I was saying, all of these that we are changing here are something that we're actually going to talk about in the list anyway, and we have to confirm all of these changes in the list first, and then it will do the ISG or AD first, and then ISG, and so on. So that's why doing live edit here doesn't really help, because we have to still go to the mailing list. Go to the next slide. Okay, so then we start going to the old items. This is the old item we have for the quantum resistant. So it was saying that, okay, we have this stuff in IPv1 because it's actually using the preset key to do encryption. It's somewhat resistant to quantum computers. And in IPv2, we removed this because it had some bad properties, how it was made in IPv1. And this is something that we are talking now, and the current work item we have is just to do this. And I think we are already ready, and that's actually not really covering the later stuff. So that's why this is just the first PPK based stuff. Anybody has any comment on this? Okay, next one. Split DNS, this is old, and I think this is something that is very well, it's already done, so I don't think we have to do it. Okay, next. Implicit IV, this is also old stuff, and we actually only say ESP format, arguing that ESP format is used, so that this actually only covers ESP, as it is now. All right, so I think then we thought go to the new stuff. So this is a group DOI. This is stuff that has been going around a long time. This is here mostly because this MSEC working group was closed down, so it doesn't have a home now. And because it's still related to IEC version 2 and it's related to IPSEC, so that's why they are like looking on your home to actually get it published at some point. Brian, how old is this? You can actually tell us a little bit about this. Any good comments?
Brian Wise, what was the question? How old is it? Yeah, we've had implementations in the drafts for some time. There's now at least 2 partial implementations I'm aware, other implementations I'm aware of. I should just say while I'm here, in the spirit of making IETF1 historic, we really do need a group key management protocol that's based on IETF2 to replace, so we don't have to do anything more with GUI.
All right. So, and this is a new item. So now I want to first get information. How many people actually think that this what is said here, what it is clear and enough for to describe as a charter item? So is there anything that we need to change here? Do you actually no, not the words. If you actually think this is the work item that we are going to be doing is clear enough so that we can actually say if we want to include this as a charter item or not.
Yeah, you're going to do some kind of hum on what
Yes.
you want to do this, okay?
Yes.
Before you ask for
Yeah, I want to make sure that people actually understand what we are humming for before we actually hum on it.
So from the current text, it looks like the use case is just for multicast or some unicast. So because I know there's also new item regarding, for example, ADVPN, and also there's also discussion in the list how SDVPN could use as some potential key distribution, like group key distribution based method. So I wonder, does that include those things or just like multicast only, or I mean, should we make a differentiation for this item in terms of use case?
Hi, Yavnir. This draft is supposed to replace the GDOI, and GDOI is used for both multicast and unicast, and we don't see any reason why the new thing shouldn't be used also for both multicast and unicast. For unicast with group key, but still unicast. And so that's in response to the question. And as far as why we should do this, well, MSEC is closed, so where else will this thing go?
The other option is to individual draft
Well,
through the ID sponsored.
yeah.
So Brian Wise, I think the real point here is that if you're going to have a multicast communications, you really do have to have a single key that's passed to both the senders and the receivers, and you're really stuck with the group key. So that's really the point of this draft.
All right. Okay, so let's go to the hum. So first hum is, do people understand what we are trying to do here in the sense that we can actually decide if we're going to include this in a working group item or not? So if you think you understand enough to be able to, not actually word, but you know what we are actually doing, hum now. If you think that we need more information before we can decide, hum now. Okay, so I think people actually understand what we are doing. Next question is, do we want to actually do this in IPSECME, or do we want to do it somewhere else as an individual AD-sponsored draft or something else? So the options are, we do it here, or we include this as a charter item, or we do somewhere else. So so those who think that we should do it here, hum now. Okay, and those who think that we should do it somewhere else and not take it as a charter item, hum now. Okay, so I think this is clear. We take this as a charter item. We have to think about the words and so on, and mailing list and so on. Any comments, anyone? Yeah. Or,
Yes, since you're asking to put this as a charter item, can you get a sense of who's going to work on it?
oh yeah, that's actually one of the questions. Yeah. So the next question is, who is actually going to be willing to do that? Actually, the draft authors are already there. I think actually they are still willing to continue, but who is actually willing to review this document and perhaps work on it? So I actually want to see a show of hands now. So who is willing to review this document? So, okay, there is about the 4 usual suspects. So it's not big group, but it's actually currently that was better than normally because that wasn't there's no I don't think there is any authors in that list. Because usually we have all the authors are all the same 4 people who are reviewing everything anyway. All right, so okay, go to the next slide, next item. So this is the Valerie's stuff, responder mobile, and this has a little bit more questions because there have been already some discussion about how can we do this in other ways, so like doing the responder redirect or something like that, and that's something that is a little bit more unclear. So actually, I was thinking about we should probably skip this now and do that in the end because I think this is going to be having more discussion in whatever we are actually going to be doing. So if you go to the next slide and we come back to the here later. So post-quantum equation 2. So this is now doing post-quantum in a sense using the new algorithms, not doing the PPK, but using new algorithms. It also includes the stuff like the how to transfer the big stuff in between the IC out or before the IC out, because this is how to transport those keys because they are bigger than we can fit in the page and so on, their message. So is there anything here that people actually think that we should is this clear enough now? We have been discussing this already in the mailing list.
Queen-dangedness. This is going to be really good work. However, at this moment, we think at least we will receive like 37 or more submissions. So I don't know, we want to test them all or would be better to wait for like in a year or so when we cut down the submissions to a reasonable good list of candidates, and then we can do the work over here to test those out, because right now we have too many.
Actually, this is something that we have to do first also, that meaning there's this how to actually transport those big, because we see that all of these algorithms are going to be requiring bigger payloads that we can actually transport now.
True, but
so this is actually something that we can ask, and in normal case I don't think we try here not to fix any specific algorithms, and this is probably going to take a couple of years anyway. So after that, we can do, when we get to the actual algorithm choices, that's something that working group is going to be selecting then.
So is that the case that by looking at the different algorithms and we see the sizes and then we can test them out, or but in order to do that, we need to look at them.
Yes, but it's something that is we are not really expert on those algorithms. So I think actually we're hoping that CFRG or something else actually will check out and do some of this algorithm work for us or check out which is best.
We're talking about only performance here, right? That's all we're talking about, right? We're talking about only performance here, right?
No, we are talking.
The size means performance, right? Okay, even that, then different classes of algorithms or different algorithms have different numbers on them. And in order for us to do really good job here, we need a list of the candidates to be a little reasonable. Now, right now, we think we receive a lot. So in order to do this good, I think we need to define which ones are we going to test out. But in order to do that, at least I think we would pay attention to the next submitted ones, and by down the road we know a list like 10 or 15 or something. Right now we have too many,
But what we have there, the first item is the working group is analyze the possible problems, which is something that we need to actually analyze. We need to check out the different protocols. Check out what are the problems if you try to use them. Like, okay, this one requires 2 megabyte messages, so we have to do something for that. This one requires something like so. This is something that this is like very generic, trying to get, okay, do we actually want to work on this? Okay, but so yeah. Okay.
Valery Smyslov, LS+. So I think this work item can be seen as a two-step. process. First, we should make IQ2 big payload ready. It doesn't really concern this particular post-quantum key exchange method, but we do know that all these key exchange methods requires larger key sizes, at least now, than conventional. So, and the second step is to choose one or few real key exchange, post-quantum key exchange method when they are ready and when they are available, and put them into IQ2. So the first step is just to make IQ2 able to transport large key exchange payloads and without problem with fragmentation and so on.
Hi, Rich Sauls. No, it needn't require large keys because you can just do hash-based signatures, so it's the size of a hash. I think this is really premature for this group to start to do anything. At the last IETF, Kenny Patterson, co-chair of the CSRG, said, look, let's all just wait for NIST. And it's going to be multiple years, and so I'd really push this out to the next rechartering.
Hi, Eric Scrolla, hat off. I mean, so I think what Rich just said is fairly persuasive. You know, if you, I think that the work item here that seems like it might be relevant now is to get some sense of the impact on Ike if you had to move to larger keys, much larger keys, right? Like, I don't know, and I don't know how much work that actually is. I don't know how the impact on the performance or behaviors of Ike would be if you had to like have multi-megabyte keys. It may be the case we don't need that. So like SIDH has keys that are comparable size to Diffie Hellman, for instance. Now, hat on. I would not expect this working group to be selecting algorithms. I would expect CFRG to be selecting algorithms and us to be universally adopted across IETF.
Hi, this is Debbie Cooley from NSA. I'm going to move this down because I can't stand on my tiptoes. Anyway, so I just want to point out that this is key exchange, not signature. Yeah. So hash-based signatures doesn't apply. So I personally, not personally, but I do think this does need to be worked on, right? Because the key exchange will change because of the size, and it's best to start working creatively on how you're going to do that with larger key sizes now than wait.
Yeah.
I mean, it's algorithm independent, right? So you got to be able to handle a larger key size. You may have creativity in terms of you negotiate a key every so often and maybe you update that key rather than do the key exchange over and over and over again.
Yeah, so I think the reason why we are discussing here is because there is some people who are actually doing some work on this area, and they want to see some solutions here, and they want to, get something better than PPK, something better than just pre-shared keys for quantum resistors. And this is something that is, and I expect this to happen, to take, some time. It's not going to be finished, next year. It's not probably going to be. It might be 2019 or something like that. So, but there is, of course, one of the things that we can't completely separate the big, payload transport from this, because we need to know when to do it. Because there is an option. We could do the transport the keys before we start even say init using HTTP and get the keys transport, and then we just have a reference to them in say init and out, or we can do it with it. So there's multiple options. So that's why I don't think we actually can separate it completely as we do the big key transport first and then we start working on this. So I think we need to. But we need to check out first what is required for each of these. Okay, this one requires this big algorithm. This one requires this information. This one requires how many messages and so on. So we can actually start doing the modifications to like protocol itself. So we can actually plug in the algorithms later.
Michael Szymanowski, NCSC. I support this as a charter item. I think it's important that we should be working on it. Maybe some of the concerns that have been raised here today could be addressed if it was slightly reworded to make it explicit that that it is going to be algorithm agnostic. It is only like developing a protocol that can cope with the longer key sizes, and it's nothing to do about selecting algorithms.
Okay, so now we have had discussion about this charter item itself. So how many people actually have some kind of understanding what we are trying to do here in this charter item, so we can actually, can we actually decide whether we take this as charter item or not? So if you think that we can decide now, so hum now. Okay, if you think that we need more information and can't decide now, hum now. Okay, so I think that it's clear that people think that they can understand this issue clear enough. So okay, so next question: do we take this item as this work item as a charter item in the IPSEC-ME and start working on it? So the other option is that we leave it for later or some other working group. So the first option: do we add this as a charter item to version 2 or IPSEC-ME? If you think so, hum now. If you think that this should not be added, hum now. Okay, I think there is clear consensus that people want to work on this, and we have to, and we are probably going to get, we have to be very careful about what we write here, because I think the ADs and so are going to be concerned about that. We are not going to be defining any, crypto algorithms or anything like that. Okay, next one. Oh yeah, actually, yeah. Okay, how many people actually are willing to work on this? Review drafts, write drafts, do the analysis on algorithms and so on. Okay, how many people are willing to review drafts? Okay, we have quite a lot more than normally. How many are willing to help editing or writing drafts? Okay, we have a little bit less, but I think that's good. So the next item, Diet ESP. This is, there has been some discussion about this, that we should be, let me see if the compression is ESP. Yeah, the version 2 compression is also here. So this is not only Diet ESP, it's also, Diet IC version 2. So how to compress ESP and IC in a suitable way to do some IoT-like of things. There are some cases which has been, discussed, and there's a couple of proposed drafts that we can start working on. So, is there any questions about this working item people actually want to ask before we actually ask if you understand what it is? Okay, so how many people are? So let's do a hum again directly. So if you think that you understand that what this is, and we can decide whether we take a certain item hum now. Okay, if you think we need more information before you can decide, hum now. Okay, so I think we still have more people understanding what we are actually doing here. So the next question is, do we actually want to take this as a working group item or work item for our charter? So if you think that we should take this as a work item, hum now. If you don't think that this should be done somewhere else or not at all, hum now. Okay. But I think we still have this as something we have more people. Okay, how many people are willing to work on this, meaning the review drafts? Let's start with the review drafts. All right, so we have a usual 5 or 6 suspects. And how many are willing to write the drafts or edit them? Oh, we have about same group of people. Paul?
So one thing I would like to see is more people from the IoT space to actually come here so that they can explain better to us what is important, because we can do all these things about compression and we can save 1 byte and double the CPU usage, and they might come back to us and say, that's not what we want.
Actually, usually what they say that if you save 1 byte, that's about 100 instructions from the CPU. Or sorry, 1 bit. Transmitting 1 bit over the network is about 100 instructions in the CPU. So that's why, yes, they can do lots of compression to just save 1 bit.
Yeah, just as a relay, Dave Skenazy of Apples is willing to do both parts. Help.
Okay, good.
Right method.
Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, so this is something that is signature algorithm negotiation. So we added the diagonal signatures, we negotiate the hash algorithms there, but we don't negotiate the actual keys we are going to be using, because in most of the cases, when I was writing that specification, I was thinking about, yes, you have you have a configuration which says that when I'm talking to Paul, I'm using this key. When I'm talking to Valerie, I'm using this key. It's the same thing with the preset keys. It's the same thing with certificates and RSA keys. I configure the key that I'm using authentication for out. I'm not just say, okay, here is a list of keys. Use whatever key that I have to talk to whatever people you have out there. That was my understanding. That's why I was saying, okay, we don't need this because, yes, we need to have a hash algorithm because we can use the hash for each of the keys. But I have only one key, and that key specifies what algorithm I'm going to be using. You are not supposed to use RSA PSS and RSA PKSS1 with the same key. You are always supposed to have two different keys for one for one use, one for the other use. I know people are doing this using the same key for same things or different algorithms, but you are not supposed to do that. So that's why I was original idea why I didn't include this. Or we actually had a lot of discussion about this in the digital signature RFC we also was working on. So, but this has been issue with some people, perhaps me saying that this is operational issue for them. So that's why it's back here again. So.
Valery Smyslov. For RSA, the key is the same. So if you have DSA and RSA keys, for example, they are different keys, but for RSA, the key is the same, but the signature format are different. And I suspect, and we suspect, that the situation may repeat with future signature schemes when one key can be used in with different formats. And so we have one certificate. We can have one certificate that key from the certificate can be used with one way or different way. We don't know which way to use if the other side doesn't support both. Well, so that's more generic questions than only RSA, SSA, PKCS, and RSA, SSA, PSS. So we want a more generic solution.
Apparently, it's 20-6 for the Patriots. Paul, so I do think that we need a little bit more freedom here to negotiate or indicate the support of various things, because while you are clearly thinking of the pre-configuration, predetermined, server client case, there's many opportunistic and other cases where we don't know who we're talking to and we don't know their capabilities in advance. We haven't pre-negotiated them, and so I think that there's a problem here. As for the RSA case, in theory, you're right that it's easily solved because the RFC 8331 now says you must support PSS, so everybody should just support PSS, and then this case is closed. Unfortunately, the most widely available crypto libraries and implementations don't support PSS yet, so they're all violating this shiny new RFC.
Yeah, Eric Scroll head off. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not super pessimistic that we're going to have situations where the same key will be used with multiple algorithms again. We say hopefully we've learned our lesson there. I see Paul scoffing, but maybe. But it does seem like it's the case that, I mean, like certainly in TLS it comes up all the time that someone has two certificates, one for like RSA and one for ECDSA, and you want to be able to tell which one it is. So that seems like, yeah, I mean, my impression is sometimes that happens in Ike, and if it happens in Ike substantially, then that's a problem we're solving, even if you don't have to solve this hash key asynchrony. I mean, so certainly, I guess one thing I'll say, not everybody in IETF has the same thing, but over in TLS, we've sort of come down on like, signature algorithms and hash algorithms are all just one giant bundle, and we're not going to let you independently specify, this signature algorithm, this hash algorithm. We just say like this key is, ECDSA with P256 with H256. So of course this group can do different things, but that's what we come down.
All right, so okay, we do the normal hums. So who thinks that we actually understand what this issue is and think that we should, we can actually decide now whether to take the starter rounds? So if you think so, hum now. Okay, who thinks that we actually need more information before we can decide? Hum now. Okay, so I think we understand what the issues are, or think we understand enough about the issues that we can actually make a decision now. That's it. Okay, so the next question: do we want to add this as a working group, work item for the charter? So if you think so, hum now. Okay, if you think that we shouldn't add this as a work item, hum now. This was the first time where we have a little bit more resistance, but but I still have clear majority on saying that we should add this as item. All right. So next item. Okay. Now we go back to the Valerie's. This one, because we skipped this one because I was expecting that this might take some time, and because we have 20 minutes now and we can actually help. So this is issue that we already had discussion in the mailing list, where there was people asking why can't you use this, why can't you use that, and that's one of the very good. When I was still looking at this, I had the same idea that I was saying, oh, you can use redirect as an informational exchange after the essay is up, so you can actually move the other people otherwise. So why can't you use that? And I have no idea why you can't. But Valerie clearly has some idea why you can't use. So perhaps you can actually explain a little bit more about this use case. What are the issues why you can't use the redirect mechanism? Because this is something that we have to know. If you can use redirect, it's still a good idea to have a draft or RFC saying that you couldn't use it this way. We don't actually add such new protocol. We just describe that what you can use with the current protocol by combining them together. But
Valery Smyslov, LS Plus. So redirect is clearly a possible solution, but it has major drawbacks that it requires the full reestablishment of IKSA. So it's a big penalty. Big penalty because it's not only big penalty. If we talk about resource, it's only in some cases it may be inappropriate because for the client it is a sudden. Well, if client needs to enter some interactive information like PIN or like IP password to authenticate, it will sudden for him. When server cluster decides to switch it to another node. So you are working and just you pop up and just authenticate into your PIN again because we are going to switch you to another cluster node. So redirect has two drawbacks, and it's consuming much resources by reestablishing IKSA, and it versus human being that might be using client. So the better solution is possible with Mobike if you manage to tweak Mobike so that server, the original responder can instruct client to move to another address of the load sharing cluster.
I was just thinking about it. I don't actually remember if Mobike actually limits it so that you always has to be initiator. I think it actually allows you to do that anyway. But anyway, so this is sort of the exact other proposal is to use the redirect and resumption, so you get rid of the other. Well, but anyway, I think we actually now probably understand a little bit more about this question, and it seems to be that there is lots of different ways we can actually solve this issue. And we are not trying to solve this issue now. We are trying to think about if we actually take this, and I think there is we can clearly see that there is solutions out there. So this is not something that we don't know if it can actually be solved. It can be solved. The question is how easily and what kind of modification. I did this for later, but Paul.
Paul Wouters. So we've actually also recently been doing work on Mobike, specifically with Linux. And so we also ran into a few things. For instance, that there's various ways to do Mobike. Like you can send a probe first, and then only when the address has changed, you actually do the actual Mobike update. And I found that basically everybody in the wild skips this step and just sends an update, even if it's not updated, because it saves you some latency in a round trip. So I was wondering maybe to actually expand this charter item and say, let's just do an update on Mobike. Let's look at all the Mobike stuff that's out there and actually do a sort of clarification updates document that also takes this issue into account, but also maybe look at other things. And one other note I wanted to make is, for instance, the Debian and Ubuntu kernels disable the XFRM migrate, which is used by Mobike to actually migrate the SA to another endpoint because of security reasons. So maybe we should somehow also have an updated document that tells those people that no, this is safe and you can actually enable this. So I think in general it would be good to get a sort of new Mobike document out there that sort of puts all the updates and clarifications into one new document.
All right.
So, Daniel Migo. I think the issue to solve is rather important. Be able to switch from one context to from one machine to the other. That we use Mobike or redirect is, I would say, equal. I don't really care, but that we define the context and that we're able to transfer that context from one host to the other is something important, I guess. And I'd like to see that in the charter.
All right. Okay, so we had some. Now I hope we actually get clarification, or a little bit more clarification stuff. Okay, if you have more comments.
Yeah, Dave Skenazy, exact word. Seconds Paul's point.
All right, so to extend this to be more of a full Mobike clarification document than just only this kind of this one small work item. This is actually this is something that we can actually think about, and this is something, of course, we need to. This text isn't suitable for that because we need to we need to discuss about this on mailing list. But anyway, so let's see. Okay, let's make our hum. So if you think that we have enough information that we can decide whether we have enough information whether we want to do some kind of Mobike related work item in the charter, not necessarily this. But it might be also the other one I was thinking about having, So if you think that you understand problem well enough that we can decide whether we take a Mobike related working item or not. So if you think that you understand, hum now. If you think that we need to get more information in the mailing list or something like that before we can decide, hum now. Okay, we have very smart people here. They all know everything. Okay, so the next question is then, do we want to take some kind of Mobike related, this is what, but I'm going to go ask the specific question also, do we want to take this exactly, or do we actually want to have just generic Mobike? But I want to see if there is any consensus that we actually want to update Mobike in some way or not before we actually go in what way we are going to be changing. So this is going to be hums after this. This is just, okay, do we actually want to take something that updates Mobike in the working group? So if you think that we are going to, should we take some item that updates Mobike in the work item? If you think so, hum now. If you think that we should not take anything work on Mobike, hum now. Okay, I think that was about 50-50, I think. So I think actually this is something that, let me see, we have 10 minutes. So I think this is something that we need to go back to the list and start working on mailing list, because we will. No. Lamps start here in 11. So that's why I was thinking about. I think this is something that we can decide now, so we actually go back to the mailing list, and we probably need to have Paul write his proposal, what is going to be this charter text for Mobike update, and perhaps Valerie writing a bit more about what the problem statement or what he's really explaining more. Continue the discussion we had already there. So.
Well, Valery Smyslov, I think that we are a little bit more than needed concentrated on Mobike. The real question is how to make a load sharing cluster with IPsec, and it can be Mobike is just one solution for one. I mean, my draft is just one attempt to solve this problem, but the problem can be solved in different ways. I think it's not the only way to use Mobike, but this is the problem that I think must be addressed in this group, because I think it's really important. Problem. We addressed problem with high availability cluster with RFC 6411, but load sharing cluster is not addressed.
We have done some work on load balancing and high availability earlier, and most of those have been gone quite badly, I think, because we haven't had issues there, because those go so deeply into the implementation in most of the cases that people have a different solutions. So quite often it's actually more implementation details than actual protocol issues. But anyway, so we come back to this on the list. So go to the, I think there was a couple of more that didn't have a charter text ready. So there was this IPv6, IPv4 address failure issues. This is the new draft that was sent to the mailing list a couple of because it came to me as an IANA expert, and they said, okay, we published this document 2 weeks ago, and we want to get IANA numbers for it. And this was the first time I ever saw that draft. So then I said, no, we want to. You want to bring it first to the IPSEC-ME, and if IPSEC-ME says no, then you have of course go to ADs, and AD will go. And I'm not sure if the draft is, actually I'm quite sure the draft isn't stable enough that there might be some changes to that in the last call. So that's why I don't want to give numbers before they are stable enough. So I want to people actually looking. There was some review on that, but it's actually something that should we take it to the work item or not? Is the author of the draft, by the way, here somewhere? Because no, okay. So I was thinking about because yeah. So this is coming from the 3GPP side. They have when you do 3GPP authentication, you have this you get the IPv6 address, IPv4 address, and you will get an error for both of those, or you get one or only other one or something like that, and that error is something that they want to propagate to also to the IPsec. So if you're if you didn't get IPv6, IPv4 address at all from the mobile network, and you just want to also send that to the IPsec end, that okay, I didn't get IPv4. So that's I think is the base idea. But draft is generic, saying that okay, we can do this in any cases that where you have an address allocation. You say that okay, no, you can't get IPv4, you get only IPv6, but you didn't request it, so go and request it again. So do people understand what this item is? If I said people nodding, I don't think we can actually decide on the charter item because we don't have any text here. But I would like to get something a little bit concerned, or do you think that this is something that we should start working on to add a charter item? So we actually, or do we just say okay, go to individual submission or go to the AD sponsored draft? So if you think that we should think about taking this as a item, now. Okay, if you think that we should leave them to do this somewhere else, now. Okay, we don't have any idea. Okay, so I think we have to go back to the list and think about it, and perhaps people need to read this draft more, and so.
I think you should ask the question about whether it's understood or not.
Yeah, it's very hard because I don't. How many actually have read the draft? 2, something like that. So okay, so I think we need to get more review on that, and then we can actually decide. Okay, yeah. So let's come to that. So it's not an IPSEC-ME draft, and it's not a work right there, but I want people to actually read and comment on it. Okay, so labeled IPSEC. That was Paul's late-minute addition with no hats. Oh, sorry, it was red hat.
Actually, yes, this was red hat. I can just do a one answer. I did send text to the mailing list for the charter, but it's basically we have security contexts and we want to be able to negotiate them so we can sort of chain machines with different security levels together. We had this in IPv1. It was badly hacked, but then it was slightly less badly hacked, and I'm hoping we can do a really nice solution for IPv2.
Do you want to comment on this or something?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Others.
Okay, so this is something that we. So you send a list, charter item to the list. Have anybody has been able to read this charter item? Because I haven't.
Yeah, you have no. I've read the proposed text, but does anybody other than the U.S. Department of Defense want multi-level security? I mean, it's kind of sounds like 70s security. Why do we still need it in 2017?
Yeah. So, but I don't think we actually can make any decisions about this here. But I think that is something that we should take to the list and think about it. And Paul will read the proposal, and it's actually something that we actually might want to have a design team think about. What the actual protocol is, because there are so many different ways of doing this, and it's not. It's also as you said. We don't really use it, so how do we know what's problem we are trying to solve? And if we don't know what problem we are going to solving, if we know that our solution is going to be suitable, so it might be useful to first get people who actually use this to actually tell us what they actually want before we actually start working on it. All right, so let's go to the others.
Yep. So Tommy Pauly, Apple, and I'm speaking on behalf of what David Scanazzi, also from Apple, sent out earlier this morning as proposed charter text at 7:39. So you had plenty of time to read it. And so this is, I mean, it's essentially trying to say, should we be addressing some ability to mitigate privacy concerns around certain deployments? So he had sent out a proposal, I think, on the list a little bit ago that essentially says, could we do something like an HMAC extension in the init to just say, like, I have some pre-share key of knowledge that you were there, such that if a server, like, let's say I run a responder for some very special use case that I don't want people to essentially scan me or be able to tell that I'm actually running an IKE responder here. Or if I'm being the IKE initiator, because once I do the IKE init, there is really no authentication of who I'm talking to. So if the responder is doing a man in the middle, and I don't want to be able to give up my IDI payload, for example, because there's something private about what I want to use for my IDI, that unless the responder has at least some little bit of token of HMAC that says, yes, I think that you're something vaguely I should be talking to, that I don't give that up. So essentially just saying, for restricted deployments that are not necessarily your normal client server use case, that you're doing maybe peer-to-peer stuff, that you want it to be more locked down, we want to add the ability to make it a little bit more private.
Yeah. Actually, this reminds me, one of the things that we forgot from the list is the pseudonyms. We were having this discussion in PPK context. We were saying, okay, we don't want to actually do the ID protection now because we can actually do it pseudonyms. And I think pseudonyms will probably solve that issue. So pseudonym meaning that in the ID payload, we are actually doing just random thing. And when we actually get, the authenticated thing, then we actually update the pseudonym. So every time we have a list of 10 of the next pseudonyms I will be using, and then when we run out, we actually get new. Okay, give me 10 new random IDs for me that I can use. So I never tell you my real identity until only the one who actually gives me those list of pseudonyms will be able to map me to the real ID.
Right. Yeah, so that would work very well for you. So I think it's less a proposed solution in saying that we have a problem statement of we'd like to be able to be more private.
Okay, that's actually something that, yes, because I think the pseudonyms is something that would be actually interesting for at least for me, and I think there was other people also wanted to solve this issue. So it might be actually so that if the pseudonym will be solving his problem also, that might be actually an item to put it in charter. So
this is the last comment.
All right.
Ooh.
3 minutes.
This is just following up on something I said before. I think for the charter, one of the things that we should add are some operational documents. So basically, either BCPs or here's how you actually implement what it is we're proposing. And I'm going to give 2 examples here that I think we should have documents for. And one is the PPK distribution example, right? A short document, but that describes the mechanics of actually doing the distribution. And the second one, I think, is the algorithm negotiation is an example of here's how you do something. And these could be short documents that are either BCPs or are targeted at standardization, but perhaps not, right? Because in the case of the PKK distribution, one of the things I'm thinking is that we think of that as static now, but it may change very drastically when we start thinking about, or if we move to dynamic, right? And so I think in the charter, there ought to be something around these operational texts, but I didn't send at 6 a.m.
But if you can send it if you can send during this week, then we can start working on it.
But here's what I would say to the chairs. I'm willing to send to the list some sample text, some proposed text for that kind of charter item that I think ought to be included if we did a recharter.
Yeah, please do.
Okay.
Okay. So that was the last other item. So what our plan for this is which actually now it's not going to be working that well, but our plan was first originally so that we actually as a chairs we work on the charter text with people who are on actually. So by the end of the week we would have something that would be something that we could actually discuss and say that this is the charter. But okay, we have now a couple of items there, of course, which still require more work. But we try to get, the base stuff that we already agreed on in a format that we can actually say that, okay, is this, suitable for everybody? Okay, if so, then we can actually forward it to the ADs, which will then say there, words on that. But then we have a couple of these things that I would like to get very quickly these things done, because the Christmas is coming, and by the end of the year we turn into the pumpkin or something. So that's the question. Yeah, 80. Oh, you are not the responsible one. You are the unresponsible. Irresponsible.
Well, I mean, I go back to Richard Barnes's "always be closing." I mean, like, what I want to see is like work happening that is valuable work that is like that people want to do. So that's why I asked if people wanted to work on things. So from my perspective, as long as people want to keep working on it, and I guess in future me, I want you to ask who's going to implement too. But as long as those things are happening, I'm happy to have this continue. When these things aren't happening, I'm going to ask you to close. What's the deal with Shinazi? He's not here. He's like just slacking.
So.
Okay. I thought he was just in his room, like hungover.
All right. So. Yeah.
So I think with this we have to end the IPSECME meeting. Has anyone not signed the blue sheet? Okay. I'll bring that over. I think with that, thank you.
We can also do AH, kill, kill, kill.
Drop 10 Jim, there's another set here. Great. Yeah.
Right.